Welcome back to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
We welcome you back to Talk of the Town for this Friday, February 4th. I'm Gary Stevens. It is the first Friday of the month, so our 10:30 segment, we spotlight the Community Foundation of the Holland, Zeeland area. Normally, we are joined by its president, Mike Gorehouse, but Mike has graciously allowed the microphone to be passed over to Colleen Hill. She is the Vice President of Development and Donor Services with the Community Foundation, and she joins us via the Zoom connection this morning. Colleen, good morning and welcome to WHTC.
Good morning, Gary. Thank you so much.
Glad you are with us. And if you have a question about the Community Foundation, Colleen will be able to help at 616-395-1450, 616-395-1450. Before we touch upon some of the topics, a little bit about Colleen Hill, a little bit about how you became involved with the Community Foundation and exactly what are your duties.
Absolutely. So Colleen Hill, as you shared, Gary, Vice President of Development and Donor Services. I have been with the Community Foundation for about 3.5 years now in this role. Prior to joining the Community Foundation staff, I did serve a couple years on the board, and I have had a relationship with the Community Foundation in some capacity for well over a decade. And my role here with the Community Foundation is just as my title says, Development and Donor Services. So I manage many of our donor relationships, both on a kind of bringing new donors and helping them make connections with the Community Foundation, as well as serving all of the existing donors that we have. So just working hard to make sure that donors who have engaged with the Community Foundation, that we're helping them achieve their charitable goals and serving the community well.
We've talked to Mike many times about the fine things that the foundation has helped to finance and to be able to put forward to help the community. But, those things don't come A, cheap, and B, needs capital. That's where, hate to say it, but I will say it. That's where you come in to get that capital, be able to do some of the fine things.
Absolutely. Yes, I get the privilege of working with generous folks every day who wish to make a difference in our community.
Now, let's touch upon some of the things that you are doing in your capacity and what the foundation is doing. Before we touch upon some of the nuts and bolts of it, there's always good things to tell about, and I don't want to put this at the end of our conversation. I want to sort of start with it because you probably are seeing and have seen stories of people who have given, be it during their lifetimes or, as I've talked to Mike before in the past, legacy giving, where they've left a legacy and it has really become a great service to the community.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's, as you shared, Gary, we work with donors both during their lifetime and help to steward their legacies beyond their lifetime. So if you don't mind, I'd jump ahead to a couple of the stories that I was really hoping to share today about some donors who, a story about one donor who actually, based on an experience that they had, created a very unique fund here. So, and there's been some interesting things that have happened with that. I love to share this story because it gives an opportunity for, I think, people to hear just kind of how unique and different some people's charitable goals might be, and then how they can be carried out. So many of you may know this gentleman in the community, Don Heringa. He was the owner of Trendway Corporation here in Holland. And during the time that Don was leading the company, many years ago, way back in 1987, he had an employee who actually went missing, didn't show up for work. And it turned out that individual, a very young man, had actually been murdered. He and his wife had been murdered. And this was a case that went cold in our community, and they did not find out what had happened in that situation. And this was something that was very close and near and dear to Don and his wife Jody's heart, because they were very close with this young man. Don had hired this man. This is one of Don's employees. And so he actually worked very, very closely with the Ottawa County law enforcement, and eventually founded an Ottawa County cold case support fund out of this, because this case had gone cold. And it was not until several years later, I think it was actually 28 years later, that they were able to discover who had actually murdered this husband and wife. And so Don had established what's now here at the Community Foundation called the Ottawa County Cold Case Support Fund, because often with cold cases, when they go cold, there aren't a lot of resources that are dedicated to those types of cases, unfortunately. And so sometimes there are just, expenses that are sort of out of the ordinary. It might be testing, it might be DNA testing, but it's on, cases that are 25, 30 years old that have gone cold. And so there aren't necessarily the resources within the county to dedicate to that. So that's the exact purpose of this fund. That's why Don set this up. It was so important to he and his wife that they were able to eventually solve the case of his good friend and his employee, that he set up this cold case fund so that others could possibly have that opportunity of getting some closure, even if it is several years later and that case has gone cold. So how it works is when the Ottawa County Cold Case Department, when the investigators have, maybe an expense that's a little out of the ordinary, that they know doesn't fall within their budget, but they've got, maybe some new evidence or something that they want to look into, they will actually reach out to Don, who advises on this fund, and say, hey, Don, we've got this, this test that we want to run. We want to see if, there's something here that we might be able to solve a case. And that happened recently. There were actually, two bodies that they had that had been discovered, both of them over 20 years ago, here in Ottawa County, and they had some new DNA evidence that they wanted to run, and they reached out to Don and said, hey, can we fund this? The fund was able to make that grant to the Ottawa County, from the Ottawa County Cold Case Support Fund here at the Community Foundation, to the county to run those tests. And they in fact did identify one of those bodies from 28 years ago as a woman who, you may have even read this in the paper recently, Gary, of a woman who went missing from Minnesota. And so while that doesn't solve the whole case, it certainly, I would imagine, gives some incredible closure and peace to that family, and at least one more step in the case, a little bit of a break, that they were able to find a body. They were able to identify a body, and that is no longer a Jane Doe. So that's just in some ways kind of a hard story to tell, and also something that we celebrate too, because that is very unique philanthropy, and it is something that I know Don is quite proud of as a donor, and certainly our community is quite lucky to have those additional resources for moments just like the other week when we were able to identify a body here. So,
Colleen, you have one more story about a donor that has really helped. It's the Be Better Scholarship Fund. Tell us all about that.
I do. And Gary, it is scholarship season here at the Community Foundation. So we manage about 103 unique scholarships every year, distribute over $860,000 in dollars to help with post-secondary education at institutions throughout the nation. And so excited to share this story with you of a newer scholarship. This one was established back in 2020, actually coming out of, as the family puts it, turning pain into passion. So the Maskelly family, the scholarship is called the Ian Maskelly Be Better Memorial Scholarship Fund. You may have read or heard about Ian Maskelly in our community. His family has been very open about Ian's lifelong struggle with depression, and Ian ultimately lost his life to suicide and to that depression in 2020. Ian was a very successful swimmer, participating here in the community, and then went on to the University of Michigan, where he was swimming at the University of Michigan at the time that he lost his life. And his family wanted to do something, of course, to both honor and remember Ian, but also to allow his legacy to continue on in the community. And so what they decided to do was establish the Ian Maskelly Memorial Be Better Scholarship. And the reason why it's called the Be Better Scholarship is one of the things that Ian was known for throughout his life, and that his parents have shared with me when we were setting this up, is that Ian was just plain and simple a really, really good person. And he was known for being the person on the swim team, for being the person at the University of Michigan in his lifetime, of being the person who will reach out to others, of always going one step further to just making sure everybody felt included and everybody felt like they were part of the team. And that was very much something that was important to Ian. And it's the legacy that his parents knew about him, but had no idea even until after his time on this earth, when so many people approached them with stories of what a great person Ian was. And so they named this scholarship the Be Better Scholarship. And it's really quite simple. It is awarded every year to a swimmer who is nominated by one of the local schools and or our great aquatic center here. One of the coaches will nominate a student who is a current swimmer for simply being a good person. That's what it takes to get this award. That is what it takes to get this scholarship. That is the main criteria, is that you have been nominated as someone who is a good person. In Ian's memory, that scholarship is awarded to somebody every year. So I certainly, I almost get emotional myself sharing about this scholarship, and yet I think that it has accomplished exactly what that family set out to do, of honoring a really beautiful legacy of a beautiful person. And so we're excited to have that, and that is one of the many scholarships that is currently applications are being accepted right now through the Community Foundation up until April 1st.
One thing why I can't do your job, Colleen, and I'm going to be frank about it, I don't know anything about cryptocurrency. I would be a fish out of water. But yet the Community Foundation is mobilizing so that people who want to play with the non-fungible tokens can be able to help the Community Foundation. Tell us all about that.
Gary, you are not alone. I think that there are a few people who fully understand cryptocurrency, and I'm certainly not here to try to define it either. But what I did want to share is just a little bit about, folks who do have dabbled with the asset, with the digital currency, and now have watched it potentially, depending on what they've invested in, grow and appreciate, and are looking for opportunities and ways that, should they decide to sell that digital currency, what are some things that they might be able to do with it. And I would say for the first year ever, we've really seen an increase in people asking questions about potentially donating cryptocurrency, and if that's possible, who accepts it, and what, how you even do that. How do you donate cryptocurrency? And so I just wanted to take a little bit of time to just share with the listeners, some of those questions that we've been asked, and certainly just what we know about donating cryptocurrency. Certainly when somebody comes to us asking questions like this, we always encourage them to talk to their tax or financial advisor, because there are some complexities, but donating cryptocurrency, particularly common types like Bitcoin or Ethereum, is a possibility. And you can donate them just like you can cash or stocks or other property. However, as I shared, donating cryptocurrency can be a little more complicated. And so wanted to just kind of give a rundown on the basics for somebody who was, if somebody is considering donating cryptocurrency. In almost all cases that we're asked about donating currency, like I said, it's because the asset has appreciated and the owner is looking for a sort of tax smart way to sell the assets. Many of the benefits of donating cryptocurrency are very similar to donating stocks or other property. Donating directly to charity can help the taxpayer or the donor avoid having to pay a steep capital gains tax, and they could potentially claim the full donation of the market value of that. As a clarifier for folks, a capital gain is the difference between the purchase price, the basis, and the selling price. When donating cryptocurrency, a few things to consider. So in order to claim the full market value of donating cryptocurrency, you must have held the asset for at least 1 year. This is a question that we get a lot because with cryptocurrency, people will kind of dabble in it a little, purchase some, the price goes way up and they're like, oh, I want to get rid of this. Well, to get the full benefit of donating it, you really should have held the asset for at least a year. That isn't advice to hold the asset for a year. Just saying, if you want to deduct the full market value, you would want to do that when donating it. Otherwise, it's considered a short-term asset, and then you would only be able to deduct the basis or the purchase price. Unlike donating stocks, the IRS does treat cryptocurrency more like real property. So if the value is over $500, there will be some additional forms, one form really to complete with your taxes. It's called an IRS 8283 form for non-cash assets. And if the value is over $5,000, the donor will need to get a qualified appraisal, which you'll want to seek some advice on getting a qualified appraisal, because you'll need to include that if the value is over $5,000 with your taxes as well, if you plan to claim that deduction. Charitable deductions are limited to 30% of your adjusted gross income when donating to public charity, but you can carry those forward up to 5 years if it should exceed that 30%. Another thing to consider about donating cryptocurrency is that a lot of charities are currently not able to accept it. So don't be surprised if you go to your favorite charity and this is a totally new concept to them. Some of this is because it's still very new. As you shared, Gary, not everybody totally understands cryptocurrency. A lot of nonprofits and charities won't have a digital wallet set up. The concept will be very new. They've probably never been asked this question. It's even been fairly new for the Community Foundation. Now we are set up to accept it. Should somebody want to inquire with us to donate to a fund here or establish a fund here at the Community Foundation. Like I said, certainly if you've got kind of tax related questions, we always advise talk to your tax or financial advisor. But if you did want to consider donating cryptocurrency, you can certainly come to the Community Foundation. We're happy to answer any questions and see what opportunities are there for you as well.
I said, I'm honest. I'll stay away from the NFT for now. Either way, if people want more information about the Community Foundation in general or about donor services, the website is cfhz.org, and the phone number for those who wish to have a conversation, 616-396-6590. That again is 616-396-6590. We'll put a link to the webpage when we put our podcast with Colleen Hill on our webpage at WHTC.com in a few moments. Colleen Hill, the Vice President of Development and Donor Services. Oops, excuse me, the band went a little loud. With the Community Foundation of the Holland, Zeeland area. Thank you very much for joining us today on Talk of the Town. Appreciate it and look forward to talking with you again soon.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you very much, Colleen Hill on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.